Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks. We're talking about
Lost Boys.
The Lost Boys.
And this is our third time trying. So 3 times is a charm. I don't know if I was supposed to say that. Although we have, I think, posted that we were having issues.
We should take a picture of our little microphone setup here and share it to the Facebook page. Just so you know that we are in the trenches doing this, okay?
We are trying so hard to make this enjoyable for you as well as us and actually be able to put something out there. We definitely are in need of a recording studio, but like I said, we're getting there.
Oh yeah, we're going to make a she-shed. We're going to have cool little egg cartons on the walls and shit.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We better start collecting those egg cartons.
I don't buy eggs enough to really...
Me either, but we know people. We'll just ask everybody we know, send us egg cartons.
Please, can I have your egg cartons? I need them. So, The Lost Boys. This is an 80s movie. Super iconic vampire movie. Starring... Who's it starring?
Where'd it go?
Where's your book?
There it is. I got it. Starred, first of all, the Coreys. So if you know anything about the 80s, the Coreys are in it, which is Corey Feldman and Corey Haim. But Corey Haim was main star. And Jason Patric were the 2 main characters. We also had...
Kiefer Sutherland.
Kiefer Sutherland was the sexiest vampire alive ever.
The sexiest vampire alive.
Ever.
Oh, ever. Yeah.
And we had Jamie Gertz starred in that as star. So you have a lot of characters that come into play. There's a lot more we could mention too that were phenomenal. Yeah. But those are the main characters.
I mean, when you come into this movie, I know for me, Corey Haim, who plays Sammy, he's the best part of this movie. And his brother's okay.
Yeah, he's okay. But I think the dynamic, personally for me, between Corey Haim and Corey Feldman, and then it would have been Jameson Newlander, so the Frog Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
I think the dynamic between them just made the movie.
Yeah, they're so serious. So the movie takes place in Santa Carla, which is a fictional Californian town.
Yes.
The 2 main characters and their dog and their mom moved from Arizona.
Mom's name is Lucy.
And then Michael, Sammy, and Nanook, the dog. You know, when they first enter town, there's all these signs about, the murder capital of the world, and there's missing posters of children. It kind of just seems like a sketchy place. This is one of the first songs you hear in this movie is People Are Strange. Yeah. Which is a really great choice. It's a good song.
It is. And the opening scenes are just... as they're panning through the city that they're coming into with the boardwalk and everything, it just kind of shows a lot of different kind of culture. And they're coming from Arizona. Mm-hmm. Their mom and dad had divorced and they were moving in with her dad, so grandpa. Yeah.
And Michael even asks at one point, he's like, hey, are there any jobs around here? And the person that he's asking is like, nothing legal, haha. So it's kind of just, it immediately is kind of okay, they seem very, naive outsiders.
Yes.
Michael, Sammy, even their mom is, very naive, I would say.
Yeah, Lucy is she seems like the typical, 80s stay-at-home mom.
A little flaky.
Yeah, she's, taking care of her boys. And, I mean, she's not... She doesn't, her character doesn't come off as dumb or slow or anything like that, but just kind of I think she sees the good in everything, even though she's in a bad situation. Yeah. So they move in with Grandpa.
Yeah. And he's very eccentric. He does taxidermy.
But he almost collects his taxidermy.
Yeah, he doesn't
everywhere in the house.
Yeah, it's not like he sells it. He's not a businessman.
No.
He just makes it because he likes it and then decorates his whole house with it. Yeah. And no one's allowed in his workshop. It's off limits. He even separates his part of the fridge out. Yeah. So he's used to the bachelor lifestyle. I mean, it's clear that he loves his daughter, and Lucy loves him. But she always Whenever he does anything ridiculous, she's always like, Dad!
Oh, Dad! It's
Dad!
the weirdest way she says it. But it's cute, too. Endearing, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, we remember it.
Yeah, so one of the standouts to this movie is definitely Sammy and Michael's relationship. They read very believably as siblings. Like, if you're a sibling, you know how siblings act. And you always know when it's like an only child writing siblings, because they're like, yeah, that's not how siblings act.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
They definitely act like siblings. Like, they roughhouse, they give each other shit, they tease, they say some mean things, but then they pretend like it never happened. You know, it's just like sibling shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So the first night that they're there, they go to... So Santa Carla is definitely a beach town, surfer town.
It's got a boardwalk.
Boardwalk, Ferris wheel, lots of little touristy
carnival games, things like
shops,
that.
yeah.
Yep.
And there's some kind of musical or like
a concert on the beach,
yeah.
I guess.
And that's when you see the very sexy, sweaty, oily saxophone player.
He's the oiliest saxophone player I've ever seen. But boy, can he play that saxophone.
Oh, what was his name? He's still active.
He is. And
I swear you wrote it down.
I thought I wrote it down too, but I
don't
see it. It is right here. I have got it.
Tim Capello. And he, like, played with Ringo Starr and shit.
Yeah.
So, this is when Michael first gets his first glimpse of Star.
Just a random girl in the crowd.
She's got great hair.
She's got 80s hair. Great big perm
And
hair.
he just stares at her. And it's not like it's just kind of like, it's like a lead paint stare almost. Like, he just is, like, staring at her. Staring. Like, honestly, it kind of creeped me out.
I kind of think if a guy stared at me like that back in the 80s, I'd have been like, hey guys, that guy's like staring at me in a really weird way. Yeah, we need to leave.
Do you know how 10 years ago it was really common for women to be killed by serial killers? That's the vibe that's happening right now. So she leaves, and Michael is like, oh no, she left. I have to follow her.
Yes, he does.
Keep in mind, Sammy and Michael are at the boardwalk together. So Sammy immediately notices Michael staring at her, and he's like, you're being creepy, Mike. Like, what's wrong with you? And then he's like, we're following that girl, aren't we? And Michael, like, loses Sammy.
Yeah, it's just like, all he cares about is finding Star.
Yeah,
like,
he's
his
just
brother doesn't matter anymore.
So focused on this lady. So we lose track of Michael for a while. This is when Sammy runs into the Frog Brothers, who are working at a comic book store. I guess for their parents, because their parents are super high and, like, sleeping.
They must be. I'm not sure they really work there, if they just, like...
The assumption is that they're high because they're, like, dressed as hippies and they're passed out and whatever. The Frog Brothers are very serious, like, military types. Don't get me wrong, they're 14, but they got, like, combat
gear. They're wearing the combat boots and the combat gear, and they talk like this. Like, they're so serious. Like, everything's so serious.
Yeah, and Sammy thinks they're hilarious. He's like, I think he thinks that they're, like, hazing him or whatever, because every time they say anything, he's always like, okay, yeah, sure. They talk about, like, how they're like, if you want to know about Santa Carla, you need to read this. And they give him this comic book. And it's like a horror comic. It's about vampires. And he's like, I'm not really into all that. And they're like, you need to be. And
you will be now.
Yeah. And just one thing I want to point out, this is another part of the movie that I loved, is they are, seriously, like, even later on in the movie, Sammy included, like, all of the, like, 14-year-old kids in this movie are so serious. Like, it is life or death all the time. And that's just how it is being 14. That's how I remember it being when I was 14.
I'm too old to remember 14.
You are. Shut up.
No, everything was serious. If it was a boyfriend, it was serious. If it was a friend fight, it was serious. It was always the end of the world. Like, you didn't see past the next day because you were 14 and everything is...
Yeah, it's here and now, right?
I think that's all of teenage years, to be quite honest, till you get older. But, yeah.
There's just, like, in general, too, this movie has a lot of sexual tension. And it's not just with, like, the two romantic leads, Star and Michael. It's also like, I don't know. I feel it with all the vampire boys. Like, they're just all
hot.
They're all hot for each other. I don't know. I can't describe it.
I'm hot for them.
Me too.
It's just a lot of sexuality there because, you know, we've talked about this before about vampires being sexy and how it's, you know, I don't know if it's that forbidden whatever, but there's always that underlying sexuality with a vampire. Usually, unless it's, you know, one of the really disgusting, scary vampires, like, you know, what's the name of that movie that we were going to watch?
Last Voyage of the Demeter?
Yes, that one is not sexy. There is no sexiness about that. That's terrifying.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I haven't seen it yet.
But have you seen the creature at all? Have you seen pictures anywhere for
no,
the movie?
I haven't.
I won't spoil that for you.
Yeah, I don't want to be spoiled.
No?
It could be so sexy. It could knock me off my feet.
Maybe. If it is, then when you just said you were weird, you are so correct.
Don't kink shame
my weirdest friend.
Well, I will hold that title with honor.
Okay.
Anyway, so Michael catches up with Star finally, and he's like, come take a ride with me. And she's like, sure. But then the main vampire lads show up. Now, this is headed by Kiefer Sutherland. And the dynamic between, what's his name?
Who are you talking about?
Kiefer Sutherland's character.
It's David.
Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot. I'm so sorry. David, you're right.
David!
You need to watch this movie.
You can tell Becky has a real thing for Kiefer Sutherland as David.
He could drain me dry, if you know what I'm talking about. Anyway.
So inappropriate. You are so inappropriate. Anyway.
This is not a show for children.
I'm not disagreeing.
If you're getting offended, go find a different podcast, okay? Go find a mommy blog to listen to. I don't care. So the dynamic between David and Star is really weird. At first, I thought it was like, oh, that's her boyfriend. But then it just came across as more of like a power imbalance. Like he was in charge of her.
Yes. He controlled her.
Very controlling.
Yes.
Yeah. And not in like a controlling boyfriend way, just like controlling, period.
Yes. Like he had some kind of hold over her.
So he was like, come on, Star. What are you doing? And she's like, I'm going for a ride. And he's like, we gotta go. And she's like, okay. So she gets on David's bike instead, and Michael's pretty put off by it.
Yeah, because she tried to put up a fight, but it did not work. He just gave her this look. David gave her this look, and it was like, oh, I gotta go.
But David's like, come along, Michael, let's race. And they have a very adrenaline-charged bike race. And Michael almost gets sent over the edge of a cliff. And he's like, you could have killed me. And he's pissed, rightfully. And David's like, don't you want to be one of us? Come to our little cave, our little man vampire cave.
Man vampire cave.
Which nobody in this movie knows about vampires at this point yet.
Correct.
So they get to this sweet cave, which is a real cave that you can visit. Isn't it, Becky?
It's a real cave. Yes, it's in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And they are real caves. It used to be, there was a hotel there, but because of an earthquake. So it is there. You can go. That's super exciting. I would go there.
I would go there 100%.
Just, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Kiefer Sutherland should be waiting for me in said cave, please. Kiefer Sutherland, if you ever hear this, you can wait for me in the cave. But not hanging by grotesque toes.
Okay, well, we'll get to the toes later on for you nasty freaks anticipating that. So they like all get Chinese takeout or whatever, and that's when they start playing mind tricks on Michael. Like, are you enjoying your
creepy mind tricks?
Are you enjoying your maggots, Michael? You know, because he was eating rice, and then he's like, psh, whatever. But then Michael looks down and he's eating maggots, and then he freaks out,
like throws the box of Chinese takeout across the room.
But then it's just rice again, and they all laugh at him, and Star's like, stop picking on him. And then David's like, do you want some worms?
No, he's like, you want some noodles?
Oh, yeah. And then when Michael looks at the noodles, they're worms.
Michael's like, those are worms. I'm not falling for this again.
And David's like, no, they're just noodles, man. And then they bring out the wine cask, which is like one of the coolest bottles I've ever seen. And they're like, drink this and become one of us. And Star is like, she whispers in Michael's ear. She's like, you don't have to drink it. It's blood. And
Michael's like, yeah, right. Because by this time, he's just like, everybody's playing mind tricks on him. So he's like, yeah, right. It's blood. So being his brooding Michael self, he chugs it.
Yeah. And then it's like, it gives him like a euphoric effect.
Yeah, almost like they're high.
Yeah. And they all go to this trestle above like a big drop off. Like you can't see the bottom.
Down into a river.
Yeah.
I'm assuming a very large river.
Yeah. And they're just hanging out on the train tracks, and the train starts coming, and you know, all the Lost Boys are like, uh-oh, the train's coming. We better get out of here. And they all drop. And Michael starts freaking out because they're just jumping off this very tall trestle. And he looks down, and actually they're hanging off the railings underneath.
Yeah, because he thought they all, like, fell.
Committed suicide? I don't know.
Something.
And David's like, join us, Michael!
So dumb Michael climbs down there.
Yeah.
Like, climbs. The rest of them just drop. But he had to climb.
He crawled,
Then
he dropped, and
then he's hanging there.
And they're all just hanging there, and then David's like, you gotta let go. You gotta let go, Michael. And he's like, are you crazy? And they all let go.
Yeah, and the train goes over the tracks there, and the whole thing's shaking, and they just start dropping one by one, and Michael's like hanging on, and he's like, ooh, you can see like...
And he can't pull himself up.
Nope.
Which is so funny, because earlier in the movie, he's like working out, like with weights or whatever, and Sammy's making fun of him for working out. Mm-hmm. And I just like had the thought when I watched the movie, it's like, okay, so he spends all this time working out and he can't do one singular pull-up. And I just think that's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could not even do one singular pull-up.
Oh,
I would just...
Whatever. Never could.
I would die. Like, I would drop, for sure, 100%. But I'm just saying, like, this big, beefy, cool, brooding, muscular man can't even do one pull-up. Like, embarrassing. So he drops, and then he wakes up in bed.
Yeah, he has the feeling of falling, because he is.
Yeah.
And then he just wakes up in his bed the next morning, sun shining. He's got his sunglasses on, because the sun's hurting his eyes.
Yeah, he's very, like, he acts very hungover. He's like a dick to everybody. He's a dick to his mom. He's a dick to Sammy. He's a dick to his grandpa.
Yeah, he's just grouchy.
Yeah, because his grandpa is like going out on a date with the widow Johnson. And he just makes a nasty comment about it.
Yeah, he's like, what are you doing for stuffing Mr. Johnson?
Oh, yeah.
You know, because of the whole taxidermy thing. Just uncalled for.
Yeah, super tacky. So he goes back to bed, and Sammy gets in the bathtub.
Well, we gotta tell where Lucy's at, the mom.
Oh, yeah, of course. So when they were initially, like, looking for a job, she finds a little kid, and she goes into a video store and is like, hey, I found this lost kid. Does anybody know where his mother is? And the owner of the video store, you know, starts talking to her, and the little boy's mom comes in and finds him.
Yeah.
In fact, the Lost Boys crew actually comes in while she's talking to the video store owner.
And they get kind of rowdy and destructive.
Yeah, and he's like, I told you boys never to come back here again.
Yeah.
And
there's a really weird dynamic there.
Yeah.
Like, you can tell, like, he's probably had to deal with their antics before, so he's kind of frustrated with them.
Yeah, and they do leave. They don't kick up a big fuss about it.
No.
But Lucy makes the comment, oh, to be young again, or like, I have boys too, or, you know, something along those lines, where she's just like, they're just kids.
Yeah.
You know, he asks her, like, oh, what she's doing, and she's like, oh, I'm actually looking for a job, and so he actually hires her.
Yes, and his name is Max.
Max.
And he actually asks her out on a date.
He does, which, super inappropriate, by the way.
We're looking at another weird power dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So she agrees to go out with him. She's really excited. Hasn't been out with a man in a long time.
Yeah.
So she was going out to dinner with him.
With Max.
And Grandpa was going out to dinner with the widow Johnson.
Yep. So it was just Sammy and Michael home alone. So Michael goes back to bed because, like I said, he's not feeling good. Sammy gets in the bath. Michael he wakes up because he's like, his stomach hurts and he's hungry or thirsty or something, you know?
Yeah.
So he goes down to the fridge and grabs some milk and he tries to drink it. But he like bowls over in pain. And then he hears Sammy in the tub singing. And he starts creeping up the stairs. And Sammy is, like I said, he's taking a bubble bath, and he's got Nanook in there with him, and he's got the radio going, and he makes, like, a bubble mohawk.
Yeah, he's so cute.
And he's singing to Nanook, which I don't remember what song it is, but Becky, give us the sound bite. Give it to us. I ain't got a man! That's exactly what he sounds like in the movie. It's so good. So he's, like, rinsing his hair off underwater when Michael comes in the door, and Nanook attacks him.
Yes, he attacks Michael because he can feel that Sammy is in danger.
Yeah. And so when Sammy comes up, he obviously heard something, some disturbance. You know, the door is open, Nanook is gone. So he comes running out, and he finds Michael at the bottom of the stairs with a bloody hand. And, well, he's like, what happened? And Michael's like, Nanook bit me. And instead of being like, I don't know, instead of, like, blaming Nanook for it, Sammy immediately is like, what did you do to my dog, you asshole? What did you do to make him bite you, you know? And that's when Michael says, he was protecting you. And something about the situation, because at this point Sammy has read the horror comic, he's like, oh shit, my brother's a vampire. So he gets mad and he's scared and he grabs Nanook and Sammy says, just wait till Mom finds out, buddy. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Just so...
He's so dramatic, too. He's yelling at... He's walking up... or running up the stairs and turns and yells at his brother. It's
well, and I just
so
think
good.
It's a good moment for a couple of reasons. Like, I love that Sammy's first instinct is to tell on his brother. Yeah. Like, to get him in trouble. Yeah, like, to get him in trouble.
You just wait till Mom finds out.
Because, I mean, Sammy at this point, I don't think I think he was scared, but he didn't totally understand the gravity of the situation that was happening.
Yeah.
So he locks himself in his room and goes to call his mom. And he calls the restaurant.
Where she is waiting to go to dinner with Max.
Yeah. And at this point, Michael goes upstairs to rest again. This boy spends a long time napping.
And because it's the 80s, every phone is obviously a landline.
Mm-hmm. So he, wakes up, though, and he's, floating on the ceiling.
Yeah. Michael, bumps his face into the ceiling.
Yeah, and he's trying to get down, and he can't get down. And, of course, he overhears Sammy in the other room making the call out to his mom. Mm-hmm. So... he's not only is Michael trying to get down from floating and he can't seem to turn it off, he's also trying to get Sammy to stop talking to the mom because obviously he doesn't want Lucy to know. And so he grabs his phone that's in his room.
And apparently they're rich because they had phones in every room, and that's totally kind of unheard of.
Yeah, she must have gotten all the money in the divorce. He got the house.
Our grandpa was just loaded, but there were phones in every room.
Which, how was he loaded? He didn't sell any of his fucking taxidermy. That's the real mystery of the Lost Boys. So he grabs the phone and he's like, don't listen to him, Mom. He's lying.
Everything's fine. It's not fine.
Yeah, because he starts to float out the fucking window.
Yeah, he's like literally outside the window, in front of Sammy's window now, because he's floated. And the only thing that's holding him to the house is the phone and the extremely long phone wires.
So then as soon as Sammy sees him floating outside his window, he starts screaming for real. And then, of course, poor Lucy's on the other line, and she's like, what's happening? Oh, my God. You know, just
and all he's doing is, Mom, he's gonna get me, Mom. So she, of course, like, throws the phone at the host that's standing there waiting to see her. And she's like, I have to go. Tell him I'm coming. Tell him I'm coming. And she takes off. And Max did not have his date that night, obviously.
He did not.
She's gone.
Yeah, he saw her running away in the parking lot, and he was probably like, damn, okay. So back to Michael and Sammy. Michael's like begging Sammy for help. He's like, just let me in, just, you know, because he's scared he's floating away, right? And Sammy's like, no way, you're a vampire. And Michael says, no, I'm your brother, Sammy, help me. Which was very touching.
Exactly. And it was, because the way he says it, it's like his voice cracks.
Yeah.
There's some pretty big desperation there.
Yeah. And it touches Sammy as well. You can tell, because he does let him in despite being frightened by him. Kind of goes from there. So, like, at this point, Sammy's like, we got to figure this shit out. Like, you need to not have this going on. We need to cure you, like something.
Well, and Mom gets home and is livid. She's so angry.
Because the fridge is open.
There's milk all over the floor. And
Sammy says,
just left her date.
Yeah, Sammy says that he had a nightmare.
Yeah, so, because he read a scary comic.
Yeah.
So she's so mad. And, so he's in trouble.
She's like, what is wrong with you?
So the next day, Lucy takes Sammy to go apologize to Max, to his house.
Yeah, she's bringing him a bottle of wine.
She has a bottle of wine, and gets to his house, and he has like a wooden gate at the end of a very long sidewalk to his house. And so she goes through the gate, and she sees his dog. And
Max's dog, whose name was Thorn.
Yep, and she sees Thorn, and she's like, well, hi, Thorn. And she's about halfway down the walkway when Thorn decides that he does not like Lucy.
Mm.
And so he begins to chase her, snarling and growling and pretty intensely going to attack her. So she goes running, and it's so bad she can't even get the gate open. She has to dive over it, and the dog starts breaking through the wood to get to her.
Yeah, and at this point, Sammy is reading another comic that mentions that during the night, or during the day, vampires have hounds of hell to protect their crypt while they sleep. So Sammy's like, he immediately jumps to the conclusion that Thorn is a hellhound. Well, because, and I mean, Lucy had met Thorn before, and he was never like that. But Max was always around, too. So.
Exactly.
So Michael and Sammy decide to kind of split up. Michael is going to talk to his contact, which is, of course, Star. And Sammy's going to talk to his, which, of course, is the Frog Brothers. So when Sammy initially talks to the Frog Brothers, he's like, yo, I think my brother's a vampire. And they're like, oh, that sucks. Gotta kill him. And Sammy's like, no, I can't kill him.
Like, stake right to the heart.
They're so bloodthirsty about it. And Sammy's like, no, I can't. And they're like, okay, well, I guess if you can't kill him, one thing you can do is kill the head vampire. You just have to find out who the head vampire is. Meanwhile, Michael goes to Star and is like all pissy because he's like, why didn't you tell me this was going to happen to me? Which I will remind the audience. She did. She was like, don't drink that. It's blood. And Michael is the one who blew her off. So, just saying. There's no accountability in this fucking movie. But it's okay because they end up being so sexually charged that they have sex. Now, when he first gets to the vampire lair, it is Star and Laddie. So we haven't mentioned Laddie yet. He's a little boy, like probably like 8 or 9, who kind of sticks close to Star, doesn't talk a lot. Star kind of like gives off like older sister vibes. So Laddie is there when Michael first shows up, and then he just disappears. and then they have sex. And I was like, hang on. The second time I watched this movie, I was like, hang on. Because the first time I watched it, I was like, whatever. I didn't notice it. But the second time I watched it, I was like, Laddie was right there. Like, were they just like, hey, get out? Like, we got to have sex now?
Right? He was right there. And then he's just gone. Yeah. Like, there's no context to it. He is literally just, poof, gone out of the bed that they are rolling around in.
Yeah.
Weird.
So... Sammy and the Frog Brothers, they talk and they kind of figure out that they think that Max is the head vampire. Mostly because of Thorn being the Hellhound, I guess. They don't fully know, like, Sammy never met David or any of the other Lost Boys. So he doesn't really know about them. So he's like, okay, well, maybe it's that guy that my mom's going on dates with. So, to make it up to him, Lucy invites Max over to have dinner at her house. And Sammy kind of springs it on her that he invited the Frog Brothers over. And she's like, okay, the more the merrier, I guess.
Meanwhile,
Michael goes to leave to...
go see Star.
Yeah. And
I think confront David was his plan.
Mm-hmm. Max is at the door, and there's, like, this weird dick measuring contest that happens. Max is like, oh, well, far be it for me to just assume that I can come in. I'll wait for the man of the house to invite me in. And Michael's like, you're invited. And then he leaves.
Yeah, because he's just already brooding again and angry about everything.
Yeah. So, you know, Max goes in, and they sit down for dinner. And the Frog Brothers and Sammy have this whole elaborate prank war thing that happens. Like, the first thing is is it the garlic?
I'm trying to think.
Yeah, no.
Yes, it is the garlic.
Yeah, so...
Then it goes in succession with the other things.
Yeah, Sammy's like, I grated fresh Parmesan for the pasta. And Lucy's like, oh my god, my son, he's so sweet. And Max is like, I would love some freshly grated Parmesan. So he, like, heaps it on. He grabs this little...
a whole bunch.
Grabs the bowl, he heaps it onto his spaghetti or whatever. And he eats it, and he finds out that it's, like, raw grated garlic.
And so he starts to choke. And the Frog Brothers are like, you don't like garlic, do you? And they're all, like, in his face. Like, it's so dramatic.
He's like, no, I love garlic. I just don't like it in such high amounts. And then Lucy is like, I don't know how that happened. She's so, like, naive about her kid's deviousness.
Yes. Then they spill holy water on him. Right?
Yeah, because Sammy's like, oh, well, let me help you clear off or no, he's like, here, have some water.
Yeah.
And instead of giving it to him, they
throw it on him.
Yeah, so then
and the lights go out.
Well, he stands up and he, like,
because it's cold water.
Yeah, Sammy motions to one of the Frog Brothers.
Because they're like, it burns, doesn't it? And he's like, no, it's ice cold.
So then, he motions for one of the Frog Brothers to turn off the light, so then the lights go off, and then when they turn the lights back on, there's a mirror in front of Max's face, and he screams because he doesn't expect to see his
face in his face.
Yeah. And it's just totally a comedy of errors. It's so funny. And Lucy's like, what the hell is going on? And Max is like, no, I understand. They don't want me to be a stepdad. You know, I'm not trying to step on any toes, blah, blah, blah. He's very nice about it. And he leaves. And Lucy's like, you're really ruining this for me. Like, I just want to be happy. And Sammy's really embarrassed.
So they decide that he is not the head vampire.
Yeah.
Because he passed all the tests.
They're very traumatic tests.
Yes.
I think if it were me personally and, like, my potential significant other's kids were, like, terrorizing me like that, I'd be like, is it worth it?
No, I'd be out. I'd be like, I'm done. I am not going to date this person. They're not worth all this. Nope.
Back to Tinder it is. So, let's see. We cut back to... So, it, like... Instead of trying to find a cure or, like, confront David, Michael has sex, and then he meets up with David and them again. And they're like, there's one final step to become one of us. And they take him to a bonfire. And they, like, fully murder everyone. Like, they have their first full vampire transformation on camera.
Yeah, they're showing Michael who they really are.
Mm-hmm. And they start ripping out throats and gutting people and drinking their blood, and it's all very violent.
It's pretty violent.
Yeah. And one thing that I found when I was researching this episode was that, like, obviously it was back in the 80s, so all they had were hard, enormous contact lenses.
Wow.
That was not on purpose. I don't know what came over me.
I wasn't sure what was happening.
Oh, no.
They had very large contact lenses that were hard.
Like, really uncomfortable. And no one enjoyed wearing them from the interviews that I could see. Luckily, they don't spend the whole movie transformed like that, but there are a few lengthy scenes where they have to wear them. And they look really cool, by the way.
They are. It's yeah.
It's scary, but, like, not, like, too scary. It's, like, a nice blend. So Michael resists the call of the blood and runs away because he gets freaked out by it.
Yeah, and, you know, he said, what was David's line in that? That you must feed.
Oh, yeah, you
can live forever, you can
stay forever young. But you must feed.
Yeah, and that really freaked him out, man. He doesn't want to feed on people. That's, you know.
So
I think that is the one true downside to being a vampire, is that you have to kill humans. Although... Well,
they make it look like it tastes good, so...
I wouldn't mind taking out a few of the degenerates. Just as a vampire, not in real life.
Oh.
I would kill bad people. I would eat the bad people. They might taste bad, but...
Well, back to, you know, you remember when we talked about Girl Walks Home Alone at Night?
Yes.
And she bit that pimp, and
yes.
I was talking about how he probably looks like he tastes nasty. Like, blech. Anyway, back to the Lost Boys here. So Michael and Sammy meet back up, and Sammy's like, man, like, we thought we had the head vampire, we didn't. And Michael's like, yeah, I think it's probably David. Because Star comes back to talk to Michael. Michael's initially kind of pissy about it for some reason. But she's like, I don't know, like, it would make sense for David to be the head vampire. Like, he's the only... He's, like, the main one, you know?
Yeah, he's, like, the leader of the boys that are wandering around.
So, Star and Michael, and Star really wants Laddie as well to be released from the thrall. Neither she nor Laddie or Michael, none of them have drank human blood, and that's apparently what makes them into, like, full vampires. None of them are full vampires yet, but the longer it goes on, the harder it is to resist. And Star reveals that she was actually supposed to kill Michael, and that was how she was going to be a full vampire. But David wanted Michael to himself. Take that as you will. So they make this plan to get them while they're sleeping, basically, and Michael wants to get Star and Laddie out, because Star runs away at the end of that whole confrontation.
Oh, yeah. Gone.
Because Michael says something, pisses her off, because Michael's kind of a dumb tool. So he wants to get Star and Laddie out. He wants to get Star out. He doesn't give a fuck about Laddie. Which is evident, because when they show up to the cool-ass cave lair, he grabs Star and is, like, ready to get the fuck out of there. And she's like, no, take Laddie first. And he's like, I don't want to, but I will, because you told me to. And Michael did not even want Sammy to come to the lair. Like, he was very concerned. He's like, no, you're just a kid. And Sammy's like, well, you know, I know people.
Yeah. And he's worried because Michael is weak.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's during the day, and he's usually sleeping during the day. So he's very tired and weak. Yeah. So Sammy's very worried about Michael, and he's like, well, I need to protect you. But then Michael just forgets about Sammy.
Yeah, he takes Laddie. They get in the lair. He takes Laddie at Star's insistence, comes back for Star, and then he fucks out to the car. Meanwhile, Sammy and the Frog Brothers are the ones searching for the actual vampires to kill. And none of them have met any of the vampires. at this point, so they don't
No.
even know which one is David.
No, they have no idea.
Which is just so absurd. It made me so mad. I was like, Michael's a bad brother. Sammy's a good brother. Michael's not a very good brother. So they do come across them hanging.
Like in the deep part of the cave.
Yeah.
It's dark and hidden from the sun, obviously.
Damp and, yeah, gross. And they're all hanging upside down, which is hilarious because they're mullets.
Yeah.
So good. One thing that's not hilarious is their gross, nasty toes that they hang from. Because they're all, like, vampire toes.
Yeah, it's really gross.
Like, they
They're
have
vampire
long,
toes. They're like
yellow
it's
talons.
So
It's really nasty.
it is. It's really gross.
It
I'm
is
sorry. I'll sit here and shake my head because
It's gross.
they're so sexy. But if I ever saw that, I'd be done.
Socks are staying on.
Shoes are staying on. I could kind of no shoes. Ugh.
Those leather boots and nothing else.
That's right.
So,
Ugh.
so this is when Sammy's like, oh shit, I don't know which one David is. And the Frog Brother's like, well, we'll just kill them all
First
then.
come, first serve.
So they
Or first staked.
yeah. So they stab Marco, who's the littlest vampire. He's got the ramen noodle mullet.
Yes. Definitely permed.
And he explodes in goo. Founder's goo, even, perhaps.
There's some goo.
It's really gross. And, of course, the other vampires are woken by this, and they're pissed. And they're freaked out, you know? Like, they have never been hunted before. They've never been in any real danger. They're used to being the apex predators, right? So they start, like, they're not able to... The Frog Brothers and Sammy, they're not able to stake anymore. So they start running. Michael, being the protective over-brother, is sleeping in the car.
Yeah, with his girlfriend and Laddie.
And Sammy actually gets... He's like the slow one out of the three. So he gets grabbed by David while they're running and trying to crawl away. And the Frog Brothers are desperately trying to pull on him to get him into, like, the shaft of sunlight that's, like, going through the tunnel. Because David almost gets him. And David's like, I'm gonna kill you. You killed Marco. I'm gonna kill you. Well, they do manage to pull Sammy away enough to where David gets exposed to the sunlight a little bit and it burns. And he like, jerks back in pain. And he stares back after them, like, very super menacingly, but a tear runs down his face.
Yeah. Which,
when I first saw the movie, I thought was because it frickin' hurt to have his skin burnt off. But on a subsequent rewatch, I realized that he was crying about Marco.
Yeah. Yep. Kind of adds to that. They once were humans.
Yeah.
So they have that bond and they do show love. I mean, they do. Just, you know, they're vampires.
And they're boys.
And they are boys. Boy vampires. What a bad combination.
So, you know, they escape, they drive away, and they're like, you know, there's still 3 left. David and the other 2 vampires, like, they're gonna come after us. So they start to get ready. One of the funniest things that happens in this movie is that they go to a church, and it's, like, during a christening, and they dip their, like, canteen water bottles into the holy water reservoirs.
It's so funny.
And it's like, you know, it's doing the glug, glug, glug of, like, being filled.
These people are just staring at him while they're trying to christen their baby.
And then one of the kids, when they leave, don't they, like, salute or something? Like, it's so funny.
Yes, so he salutes. It was Alan Frog. He just looks at him and he's like, oh no, he does the fist.
Oh, yeah, that's right. He's like, yeah,
power.
Jesus. And, of course, they get a bunch of garlic, and when they get home, they fill the squirt guns full of holy water, they fill a tub with holy water and garlic, you know, all this stuff. They have Star and Laddie hide in an upstairs bedroom, and they get ready for the vampires to come. Now, they got, like, what is Lucy doing? She must be... Oh, yeah, she was going to go over to Max's house for dinner. He was like, this was their final hurrah. They were going to give it one last try. And so Max invited her over for dinner. So she's out of the house, and to get Grandpa out of the house, they told him that the widow Johnson was expecting a date with him, and he was like, oh, snap, well, I better go then.
And he was like, gone.
Yeah.
Grandpa's out of here.
As soon as it starts getting dark, they're like, the wind starts blowing really heavily, and they're like, oh, they're coming. And that's when Sammy realizes that they left Nanook outside.
Yeah. And the panic sets in.
Yeah, Sammy is fucking freaked out, and nobody can stop him. He immediately tears out of the house, and they're screaming at him to get back in. And he's like, no, I'm not leaving Nanook outside. And he does get Nanook. He struggles with it. He can't get it untied, and that's when Michael runs after him and helps him. And they both run into the house. And almost as soon as the door closes,
the house explodes.
Yeah, like they come out. One of them comes out of the chimney. One comes in through a window. Which we've talked about this before many times at this point. Third time's a charm. But, like, it's kind of I don't know if this is a plot hole or if it's because the main vampire had been in the house before. But the assumption is always that they have to be invited in to get into a house. So then how did they get into Michael's house?
That's what we've talked about numerous times, and I don't know, and I need a vampire specialist, if there are ones out there, to tell me.
Like, if
is it because is there...
Yeah, like the master vampire, it was allowed in, so then all of his, like, spawn are allowed in? Like, how does that work? Well, anyway, they get in and they start attacking them, but the whole house is booby-trapped. I will say, though, that Sammy and the Frog Brothers get all of the kills, basically.
They're badass, right?
Yeah. So the one vampire chases them into the bathroom, and he kind of laughs when he sees the garlic. He's like, the garlic in the bathtub. He's like,
Yeah, he laughs at him. He's like, yeah, whatever.
And they can't get him to fall over into the bathtub. Like, no matter how much they spray him with the squirt guns full of holy water or whatever, he's like...
He's stronger.
Yeah.
Stronger than that. Stronger than them.
Yeah, and so, he's obviously about to attack Sammy, but who comes in clutch? Not Michael. I'll tell you that much.
Michael's still weak and whatever.
It was Nanook. Nanook totally body slams this vampire into the tub, and he totally explodes.
Yes.
Like, guts, goo, like, all of the plumbings in the house all, like, start to...
Goo. There's goo everywhere. There's this slimy,
like red,
nasty, pinky, reddish,
brownish nastiness
goo shooting out of the kitchen sink and the toilets and the bathtub and the showers, and it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. So that's the first kill, and then they have like their grandpa has like crossbows. They shoot stakes at the other vampire. Mm-hmm. And it isn't until they actually...
So they shoot it. Well, they shoot at him, and he falls down, and they're like, oh, we got him. And as they go to look, he jumps up, and he's like, you missed, sucker.
You missed, sucker. Yeah, he says exactly like that. Well, then they hit him again, and the bolt, pushes him back and goes through him and hits the stereo, and he's electrocuted. And Sammy says...
Death by stereo.
So then the only vampire left is David, right? And so David and Michael spend a lot of time circling each other and taunting each other in turn. And they have this, like, grapple fight. Which, I know that Michael had plot armor, but it will forever bother me that he won this fight because, like... David was burned earlier, yeah, but, like, the night before, he glutted himself on human flesh, He drank his fill of blood. He should be incredibly strong. It's the middle of the night at this point. It's, prime time for him. Whereas Michael's super weak, hasn't had any blood, all this stuff. Like, he should not have been able to overpower David at any point.
No, you wouldn't think so, because David has been a vampire and is super strong.
Mm-hmm.
But he fights a good fight.
He does, yeah. And it's actually Grandpa's taxidermy that takes David out in the end. Michael pushes him onto some antlers.
Which, again, confuses me. I understand he's staked.
I know, but I think it goes back. But is it just
organic?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't necessarily have to be wood as long as it's something that's alive.
Really?
I don't know. Kind of makes sense to me.
I mean, that's where I'm going with it too. I understand that, but it's always been a wooden stake.
Or it's another plot hole.
True.
Is the Lost Boys flawed?
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
That's what I thought. So David dies, but Star and Michael are like, shit, we don't feel any different. So who's the head vampire? And as an audience member, you're like, well, it has to be Max somehow. But then, like, how did he see his reflection? And how did he eat garlic? And how did the holy water not burn him? And, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Lucy and Max come home, and the house is destroyed. Lucy's freaking out, obviously. She hugs Sammy. She's like, what happened? He's like, Mom, you're never going to believe this, And Max is, like, skulking through the house, being super weird and creepy. And he finds David, and he, like, kind of, like...
Yeah, he's, like, sauntering through the house. It's weird.
Yeah, it's, like, a total personality flip.
Yeah.
And he, like, grabs David's head and, like, tilts his chin this way and that. And... he's like, oh, I never wanted it to be this way. I just thought that we would be a big, happy family. Boys need mothers, after all. And so it's revealed that he's the head vampire and that he wanted Lucy to be, like, his vampire bride because he thought that the boys, the Lost Boys, under his care, needed a mother. And that if they had a mother, they would settle down a little bit. So he threatens Lucy. He's like, well, if you want it to be peaceful, you better come with me willingly. And so she actually, like, gives him her hand. And that's when Sammy's like, you better get the fuck away from my mom. And Michael tries to fight him. And, like, he's just way too strong for them all. But then Grandpa comes home. You hear his little...
I'm not doing the music.
So the first time we recorded this,
did Woody Woodpecker?
Yeah, so his horn is La Cucaracha, and instead she did Woody Woodpecker, which you did, and I was like,
that's not right.
It took me out, dude.
I was like, I don't know what it is, but it was La Cucaracha.
Yeah. And
La Cucaracha. But
so he slams through the fucking wall of his house with his truck.
And he had stakes, like he was doing...
like a fence.
A fence, but these were like big, huge stakes.
Like logs.
Like log stakes. They were really sharpened. And yeah, he had a bunch of them on the back of his truck. And
so when he slammed on the brakes, they all flew forward and speared Max and sent him into the fireplace. And then he exploded.
Yeah, he exploded. Nobody else did.
Like,
just him.
A huge, like, explosion, like, with fire. It wasn't, like, guts. It was...
No, it was, like, fried, burned ash.
Yeah.
Like, nothing.
And so everyone's in shock at this point.
Their faces are all black from soot from him burning.
Yeah. And Michael's like, holy shit, I feel great. Star's like, yep, I'm not a vampire. Laddie's fine. Everything's...
Mom's hugging everybody. Lucy's hugging everybody.
And Grandpa comes through like a victim of war. He's like weary. He's a weary old soldier, and he goes into
the goo-covered kitchen.
Yeah, and he opens the fridge and grabs his like soda. Yeah,
cracks. It's like a glass bottle. He just pops the top off,
like it's a beer or liquor or something. And he takes a big glug, and Lucy's like, "Dad, are you okay, Dad?" And he's like, "One thing I never could stand about Santa Carla was all the damn vampires."
And it pans over to Lucy and the boys, and they're just staring at him like their mouths gaping open. And that's how your movie ends. Best vampire movie ever.
This movie is amazing. I am so ashamed it took me so long to watch this movie. I literally watched it for the first time last Halloween.
Is that... I mean, I know you told me it took you a while, but you never really told me the actual time.
Yeah.
So it hasn't even been a year ago that you saw it for the first time?
Nope.
Wow, I'm ashamed of you. Huh. Love it now, don't you?
Well, Becky is taking applications for a new podcast co-host.
She did not watch Lost Boys until last October. Oh my.
I love this movie. I love the main song, Thou Shalt Not Cry. Or Don't Cry, Little Sister.
Don't Cry, Little Sister, yeah.
It's really iconic. Super iconic. I heard the song before. I just didn't know what it was from. Kiefer Sutherland is a sexy, sexy man.
All of the vampires are very attractive. And then you've got the Corys that, you know, even though my respect to both of them, because there's a lot of things coming out right now about things that happened to our child stars back in the day and 80s and 90s and 2000s.
Well, I mean, even starting with like Judy Garland and Shirley Temple.
So even though we enjoyed them, they were both going through some pretty rough times. And I just want to shout out to Corey Feldman, who is still trying to get his voice out there that, yeah, you know, I loved what he did and I love what he's still trying to do. So,
yeah. He's a really strong person for going through what he did and still continuing to try to be a mouthpiece for everyone that experienced the same.
Just an amazing actor back in the 80s, and I appreciate all that they did. And that just made the movie special for me because I loved the Coreys. I watched probably every movie the Coreys were in because I was young and I had a real thing for Corey Feldman back in the day. Yep. And then I get
Specifically Feldman?
Feldman, yes. I don't know what it was about him. His voice, the way he carried himself, it was something. Corey Haim was cute too, but my crush was Corey Feldman. Yeah, I had Corey Feldman posters all over my walls. Oh, yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah, I love this movie. I've loved it since the 80s, and it will always be one of my favorites.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
And originally we were going to release this around Valentine's Day. February was supposed to be Vampire Month, and it just didn't work out.
We had some very major technical issues, and I know that our recordings aren't the best yet, but we're going to get there. We don't have the best equipment or the best place to record, so we still get a little echoey and a little bit crazy, but that's all right. We're getting there.
Yeah.
If you stick with us, it'll get better as we go.
So, that's pretty much it for The Lost Boys. Have you guys seen it? What did you think? I know my stupid brother thinks that it's one of the worst movies ever made.
Yeah, your brother and I need to just have a talk about that.
A peaceful talk?
It's your brother. Is it going to be peaceful? He's pretty peaceful, though. He's not peaceful? Oh, the look I just got. Adam.
He likes to pick fights. I think that's why he's like, Lost Boys sucks.
I like to pick fights too, though.
Just because he wanted to listen to us talk about it and talk about him.
Yeah.
He just wanted to weasel his way
on.
It.
Yeah, we're giving him what he wants.
Oh, God dang it.
Yeah, that was not good. Huh. So what does Adam like? What are his scary choices? His scary movies? His scary things? Has he suggested anything to
He really likes the Conjuring series.
Oh, I like the first Conjuring. After that, I'm about done.
He's seen all of them, like all the Annabelle movies.
Oh, I've seen them all too.
Yeah, so the whole little family of movies there.
Yeah. They can be scary, some of that, but that's another day, another time, maybe.
Yeah.
Whatever, Adam.
He has to come up here if he wants to be a guest star.
Yeah, he can't be a guest. We have a hard enough time recording the two of us, let alone someone that's states away.
Yeah, thousands of miles away. So, here's what we're going to talk about next. We're going to try to talk about Queen of the Damned, or we're going to talk about how cursed Queen of the Damned felt because of how terrible the quality was every time. Even worse than The Lost Boys. Like, neither were publishable, but Queen of the Damned has always been the worst of the two. So either we're going to try to talk about Queen of the Damned again, or we're just going to talk
about how it was cursed.
Wax poetic about what a traumatizing experience it was.
Yes.
Every time.
Exactly.
And then we're going to talk about Jurassic Park as well. And then we'll see.
Yes. If any suggestions, let us know. You can send a message on Facebook or post on Facebook.
Our Gmail is on Facebook, so you can send us a little email.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to hopefully getting better again.
Yes. And we love interacting with the people who listen to us. So please comment if you have the time.
Share. Let us know what you think. You can send us an email. You can send us a message. You can post right on our Facebook. Our email is
thebexpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty easy. Yeah. We really want to hear from you.
Yeah. Today the pod, tomorrow the world. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sydney Rebecca.
And I'm Rebecca Snow.
And we're the Becks.